friends, my name is Jake. Welcome to Canadian Cutting Edge, and this is giveaway week. This is the last full week of February 2023, and in one of my videos this week, one of the people who comments and is also a subscriber will win a prize pack, including, a knife and some screwdrivers and some other stuff. So make sure you comment on every single video that comes out this week, because you don't know which one is going to have the prize pack. I'm trying to do two things with this. I'm trying, in a way, to increase my subscribers directly, but I don't really want to get subscribers who subscribe just for the giveaway. Mostly, I'm trying to drive the comments so people get more and more comments in my videos so that the YouTube algorithm will start to share my videos with more people, because I really want my channel to grow. By the way, I've got 15,000 subscribers now. It's taken almost a full 7 years to do this, or is it almost full 8 years? I started in 2016, whatever that number is. And, less than 15% of the people who view my videos subscribe to the channel. So I really am trying to get people to think about subscribing, because it really does help to subscribe to the channels that you watch, because it helps them to create relationships with vendors. For me, it's knife makers. For me, it's knife sellers. For me to grow relationships with them so that I can get more knives in so that I can show them to you really, really helps. Because some of you might not know, I live on a disability pension, and so when I buy a knife, I almost always have to then go and sell the knife so that I can afford to go buy another knife and to keep the cycle going. I do get a little bit of a discount from a couple vendors, and I'm trying to grow that. And this is one of the ways of doing that. The other thing this does is it helps, with my, revenue from YouTube as well. If you really like this channel and you want to consider supporting it every month for as little as $2 a month US, or more if you want to, you can support this channel through Patreon, or below, click on that join button. It's in black bold text. That's patreon.com/CCE to get started, or hit that join button. For now, we're looking at the Harnds Defender today. This is a classic Bowie fixed blade style knife. It looks a lot like your classic buck fixed blade knife. It's that kind of style, and I think you might be interested. So come on down to the tabletop. Let's take a good close look at it. Let's begin with the price of this knife. I got it at White Mountain Knives, and I'm just going to do the one price there. $79.99 US there, but you can save 10% with coupon code CCE. That makes it $71.99 US. That's about $98 Canadian. Fixed blades like this ship into Canada, no problem at all. There's no store in Canada that has these. If I find other stores that have these, I'll leave it in the comments below and in the video description below. So check that out if you want to buy one of these knives. But if you're shopping at White Mountain Knives, remember to use coupon code CCE. Now let's talk about the sheath for a minute. We've got a Kydex sheath. They've laser etched their name in there, but at least they didn't put white paint or something in there to make it stand out like crazy. So I don't mind that it says Harnds there. 2 slabs of Kydex, sandwiched together, and nice rivets, good and strong, a lot of them. And they've got this sort of tech lock-ish kind of belt loop system, which I really dislike using on my hip, because it makes the belt handle ride so high up into, my love handles and such, into my ribs even. It's just nasty. So I don't like this. It's okay for putting onto some, hooking it onto a pouch or a bag or backpack or what have you, or for scout carry perhaps, although this is a little heavy maybe for scout carry. I don't really like this. Well, I'll talk about what I prefer in just a minute. There's also a hole here for drainage. There's really good retention on this thing. Listen to this. Holds well. There's no looseness, no rattle. Very well done. With the shape of the handle, it's easy to get some grip on that and just sort of push off with your thumb. So that's really good. And the thing I'd like to change about this is I'd like it to be more like what Real Steel does. This is one of the Real Steel knives. This is their Bushcrafter. It's got a, Scandi grind on there. And it's got this. It's, seatbelt kind of material here, just riveted on. And then you put 2 screws into those holes. So you still could put this kind of system on there if you want to. But this is much better. It carries much lower on your hip. It gives you a little freedom of movement. You know, if you sit down in a vehicle, you know, the thing can move and stuff. Much prefer this. Thankfully, Schnitzel Knives, that's a company based in Germany, their Tri knife, which is roughly the size of this knife, you know, initially shipped with something like this. They're making a belt loop attachment like this system. You can buy it at battlemerchant.com. In Germany, it's available right now. Hopefully, White Mountain Knives will carry that system. And if the holes don't exactly line up, you know, you could drill the hole out in this Kydex, you know, just to make it fit exactly. But for this knife, you know, it fit. It would, I think it would fit. It's pretty much the same dimensions right there. And, you know, so if you can get something like this, that would make this a whole lot better. If anybody from Harnds is listening, you know, this is much preferred. And if you really want to get a lot of customers, some people prefer these. Put both in the box. Like, this can't be a lot of money. That's got to be very inexpensive to produce. That's the Sheath. It is also available with an ebony handle instead of a G10 handle. That's wood, and a leather sheath. Now, that leather sheath, the stitching looks like it's a little bit rough, but at least it has a little bit more of a dangle kind of feature, and it sits a little lower on the waist. Same price. White Mountain Knives is out of stock on both. When they become available, you take your pick. Here's the knife. What do we got? We've got a Bowie style knife. We got D2 steel. It's quite thick, well over 1/8 of an inch. They got their badging in black. It's in the right spot, but I don't really like it that dark, but at least it's not too huge. So the badging's, okay-ish on here. On this side, it says the name of the knife, Defender, nice and small. Again, a little bit too dark. And then, well, it's got it upside down, but it says D2 right there. The badging's not terrible. We've got, like I said, D2 steel. Then we got this wedge here and this clip. Looks okay. That's pretty much a straight line. So, like I said, this looks a lot like a buck knife in its styling. Not exactly, of course. This wedge up here, I would like it to come thinner. Now, if you're going to baton with this thing, you do want it a little bit thicker because sometimes your piece of wood will strike up here. But for piercing, having this wedge turn into a nice thin false edge would help it to puncture. This has got a very strong tip. I slammed it into a bunch of wood, softwood, mostly spruce. I think it was maybe pine, spruce or pine, and it just broke the wood every time. No bending at all. This is 1 millimeter thick behind the sharpened point. That's 39.5 thousandths of an inch thick. That's thick enough to be super strong. Actually would prefer if it was a little bit thinner. The rest of the knife here, this is about 0.7 millimeters thick here, 27.5 thousandths. A little thicker and heavier than I prefer. This is a strong knife. If you want something that's brutal, like strong and very tough on the edge, this is pretty good. I do wish that they would have made this bevel come down a bit thinner here, though. Of course, you decide what you like, right? If you like it that thick, that's what this has. Good size sharpness choil right there. No problems with that. Fairly well sharpened. It cuts quite well. I used it to baton some wood, spruce again, no problem at all. As long as the pieces aren't too big. This is not a huge blade, but it worked just fine. We've got some jimping up here, and it's aggressive enough to be quite nice. I wish it came out just a little bit further, another 1/4 of an inch or so, but not bad at all. So that's quite good. It's a bit aggressive. It's aggressive enough that I could make sparks with my ferrocerium rod. It threw sparks okay. I'm not going to do it right here in my studio, but if it had a squared off section of the spine, because this is slightly rounded at these edges, if it was cleanly squared off, it would throw sparks even better. Now, of course, you can do that at home with a nice fine file if you need to. Even on this hardened and tempered steel, you can do that. Or you can crisp up the edges here on the jimping, but you don't really want your jimping to get too hot on the edges for your thumb. So right across here, just a tiny bit of file work, and you could get a super crisp edge. The blade shape, what's it good for? It's good for most things. If it was a little bit thinner, it'd be good for almost everything, but it's good for most things. For survival, it's a pretty decent knife for that. We've got the blade steel coming all the way back, full tang, all the way to the end, all the way around the handle. Steel bolsters here. I believe this is probably a carbon steel as well. Might be a stainless steel, I don't know, because it matches up really well. Like, you can't even see the seams, at least not easily, between, you know, the blade stock and where this was attached. We've got steel pins holding it together. They're permanently affixed. We don't know if there's some holes in the handle to balance it out or not. And then there's a lanyard tube at the back there. No crisp or sharp edges on it. Well done. This 3D handle shape is really nicely made. Smoothed out G10. You can also buy this exact same knife with ebony. That's a nice black wood. And you choose if you want ebony or G10. I decided on G10. I don't know if their wood has been pre-stabilized properly or not. I know G10 is going to last in just about any environment, going from, you know, minus 40 to plus 40. That's Celsius. That's minus 40 Fahrenheit to, you know, 110 Fahrenheit. G10 can handle all that, no problem at all. Whereas wood that's not been quite treated right, you know, you might have problems if you take it out in the super cold and then the super hot and stuff. So I prefer the G10. Well done. Very comfortable in the hand. I'll give you the exact measurements in just a little while, but it's just smooth. You know, they've sanded it. You can't feel, well, you can just barely feel the transition with your fingernail. With the smooth part of your finger, you can't feel any transitions at all, but you can sometimes get it to catch just a tiny bit on you know, the edge. Of course, the G10 is going to sand away more quickly than the metal, which is why you can get a tiny catch sometimes, but very well done handle. I'm happy with it. Now let's do all the measurements. The weight of this thing, 207 grams. That's 7.3 ounces. The sheath system, as it comes from the factory, 105 grams, 3.7 ounces. Together, 312 grams, 11 ounces even, well, 11.007. So 11 ounces for this system. Not bad at all. The sharpness from the factory, in my testing, I tested it 3 times. The average score, 115 bests. That's sharper than most knives that I review by a pretty good margin. And the lengths, the cutting edge length between my thumbs, 113.9 millimeters, 4.48 inches. The blade lengths, the tip to the bolster up here, 119.6 millimeters, 4.71 inches. The thickness of this blade stock, most of the way down, 4.15 millimeters, 0.163 of an inch. Remember, 0.125 is an eighth of an inch, so it's a well bit over an eighth of an inch. The blade depth, that's this measurement, 27.5 millimeters, 1.08 inches. How thick is it behind the grind? Well, here for most of it, where my hands are covering it, it's 0.7 millimeters, 27.5 thousandths of an inch. At the tip, 1 millimeter thick, 39.5 thousandths of an inch. That's a strong, thick tip. Too thick? Yeah, I think it's too thick. Even this, I'd like to be a little thinner at the edge. The grind angles, this side's got an average of 21.7 degrees. This side's got an average of 21.1 degrees. This side here, well, both sides, for the main area where my hand is covering, both sides are 20.2 degrees. It's this belly and tip that's a bit different. This one, the middle of the belly, 25.1 degrees, and then down to 21.4 degrees. This side, it did it the other way around. The middle of the belly went down to 17.5 degrees, but at the tip, 26.8 degrees. That's 9.3 degrees of change just in the section I'm covering up. That's nuts. Whoever was sharpening this knife knows how to sharpen the straight section, doesn't know what to do with the curvy sections. Now, we all know you guys need to know what to do with the curvy sections so that everything's tickety-boo and wonderful for using. So, Harnds, just like every other company out there, you need to teach your employees how to sharpen knives better. Going on to the handle now. The handle length, 117.5 millimeters, 4.63 inches. The handle thickness, the thickest point, I should say, 20.9 millimeters, 0.823 of an inch. The handle depth, again, the biggest point in your grip area, 28.3 millimeters, 1.11 inches. The grip area, since we've got curved sections, I'm not sure exactly where to measure it to, but I can tell you that it's just under 10 centimeters, just under 4 inches in the grip. So extra large hands have no problem. My hands are just barely extra large, but there's room to spare. And yet, my wife's hands are female medium, and she found this to be quite comfortable. So most people are going to find this handle very comfortable to use. And now the total length of this knife from the tip to the very end, just about 237 millimeters, 9.33 inches. That's the specs. I didn't talk about the balance before. There it is right there. Just behind that pin is where the balance point is. I'd like the balance point to be right at this, spot where it's the most narrow right here, that the balance would be right over that. So it's just a tiny bit off of what I would prefer. So balance is quite good. I talked about the price. I talked about, the shape and everything, the sizes and everything. What do I think of this knife overall? I wish they'd produce the exact same knife, a little bit thinner at the edge, and in a good budget stainless steel, maybe as well. So people can choose between having a carbon steel or a stainless steel. Now, the carbon steel, I don't mind for where I live. Where I live in the central Alberta, carbon steel tends not to rust very easily. It's easy to take good care of it. And, this is a nice hard carbon steel. Usually the hardness is around 60 Rockwell hardness. And I like it. I just wish there was that option, but there's not that option, at least not now. It's a rock solid budget survival knife. I like this jimping. I like this sharpener's choil. Very, very much love this grip. The lanyard hole is placed perfectly. The balance is quite good. I wish this wedge maybe come a little bit in. Some things that are just okay. Well, like I said, the thickness here is a little too much. The thickness here is just a little too much. Now to fix that, I'd have to grind down the entire bevel. A couple of the cons that I can go over again. I don't like this. Not at all. Is it a little bit heavy? Maybe. I think it's okay. I don't call this a hunting knife really. And they even call it a defender. If you just think of it for self-defense, well, then you don't need the sharpened spine. But I think it's sort of a survivalist kind of knife. Sometimes in survival situations, you need to defend yourself, maybe against animals or what have you. But generally, you're using a knife like this to do all kinds of tasks and work. And this does pretty good. It's pretty good for those kinds of things. I quite like it. Huge shout out to my supporters who send me money every single month. Please consider subscribing. Leave a comment on every video that you watch, even if it's just to say hi. Leaving a comment really does help out. So please type those 2 letters, HI, and send the comment. That really would help. And if you want to share it with somebody, that helps as well. Even just hitting that share button and then clicking on email or whatever, even if you don't send it to anybody, it tells YouTube that there's more engagement in the video, and then they share it with more people themselves. So thank you so much for helping me out. And remember, friends, always cut towards your chum, not your thumb.